welcome everybody to our second Facebook Live. We had a great turnout last time, and thank you everyone for hanging in with us, kind of getting out the glitches. We're still working on it, so be gentle to us again this time. And what we're going to do is, I just wanted to quickly, before we begin the presentation, remind everybody the IGES conference is coming up April 2nd, or I'm sorry, April 1st and 2nd, 100% virtual, 100% free. There's no reason why you guys shouldn't want to join. Just a quick reminder, if you want to attend both days, you have to register for both days. They're separate registrations, so please make sure that you do register for both days if you plan on attending both. And like last time, we're going to ask everyone if they have questions just to hold it till the end. You can post in the comments the question. Just put a Q in front of that question, and at the end, I'll kind of tally up all the questions for Diana, and we'll go over as many as we can. Whatever we can't get to, we'll get to after the show within the next 24 hours. So let's go ahead and begin. We're going to welcome Diane Brumfield and let her quickly introduce herself and tell us how she got into map and land records. So it's you now, Diana.
Hi. Well, I kind of incorporated that into my presentation, so to make it a little bit easier. I'm a little bit awkward at getting back and forth between some of the slides and remembering where I'm at, so here we go. So I gave myself a title. I have a group that I started in 2015 at the library where I work part-time, and I met a lot of wonderful people, and I've taught, it was to teach them how to do research, but I've also learned a lot from them, and we've become great friends. And so Time Travel and Genealogy Guild is just what we call ourselves. And I decided for this presentation, I was going to become the maestress. So that's just self-title there. It doesn't come with any money. Using lineage research, using land records is not something that I just decided I was going to do one day. It sort of just evolved from other things. Going back to where I come from and where we all come from, you know, we go back to our roots. And I'm real lucky to have this position at the library in Putnam County because my roots go back on both sides of my family many, many generations back to the beginning of Putnam County, which is about 200 years ago, this year, actually. So this is one of my favorite pictures, and I'm just sharing it with you. That's my mom standing. My dad is up on the top right. And this is in the heyday before I was born. They kind of had two families, four boys before World War II, and then two more kids after. So my dad, you know, like most of that generation, he's born 1909. They were all, you know, cowboys. They didn't have cars. So they went to rodeos around, and this is just a picture that I really like. And people ask me, well, how long have you been into genealogy? That's a very common question. And I don't remember when I wasn't, because when I was a little kid, my bedtime stories would be my mom telling me the typical ones. And then we would just talk, and she would tell me about her aunts and uncles. And many of those people didn't live around Cloverdale where I grew up. My dad's family lived in Cloverdale. And also many of them had already passed away because she was 39 when she had me. So I was a baby of the family. But that's, you know, that's how long I've been involved with it. And of course, I was always interested, but then got re-energized after the internet came aboard, and as we all did. So we also did 4-H with my son. He's a history buff. And it kind of pulled our family together because my husband really wasn't into this too much. And this particular Tipton County was not one that he visited very much either. It was his dad's side of the family. And we would not have gotten into going to this place if it wasn't for 4-H, which kind of pushes people to do things. It pushes parents to teach their kids in a lot of ways, not just genealogy. And then I also learned better about how to organize papers and files, et cetera. And so now I really strongly encourage anybody coming into the library and working with time travelers to use the Onondaga numbering pattern, which I'm not going to get into today, but it's such a weird word and everything, you can look it up. So one thing led to another. I had a little part-time job after I retired, and my husband found another little part-time job in the newspaper. He said, there's a library was hiring somebody for the genealogy and history, local history department. And I think you'd be really good at this. And so I thought, well, I don't need another part-time job, but that does seem like an interesting place. So I went in and I got that job and just worked 11 hours a week and some random Saturdays. But it was one of those kind of jobs, like most jobs I've ever had, when you first start, it takes a while to get where you feel like you're contributing. But on the very first day, I felt like I was kind of made to do this job. I knew a little bit more than everybody else. I'm not an expert at it by any means. A few years later, we started that time travel and genealogy guild. And that's a lot of libraries have, places where people meet to do research. And I think this is probably one of the most fun things that I do. And I've met so many great people. Some of them have been coming for the last 7 years and have become extremely good researchers. They've joined DAR, they're officers in DAR, and we do a lot of outside things besides time travelers. As I mentioned, I am in DAR. I've only been in about 10 years, and I was the registrar, so I was kind of forced to learn how to do research properly in order to actually find proofs of parentage. And that kind of, there's a lot of typical ways you do it. And then I found that sometimes maps and things help me discover things better. I'm also a registrar now for the Julia Martin Lambert chapter for the Daughters of 1812, but I'm not nearly as good at that, finding those records yet, but I'm working on it. Now, where do we find land records? There's a lot of places that you find land records, and I'll go through them, not necessarily in this order. But first of all, there's plat books at the plat office, and sometimes you find them at libraries. Like at the bottom, I said libraries often have archives. We actually have some salvaged records that a previous director and some DAR ladies pulled out of the library basement because it wasn't, proper place for them. So we actually have some old plat books, but what they don't use paper. I mean, there's so many transactions in the digital world. They use a different program, and we happen to have a really helpful plat lady, Robbie Kudnick, at our courthouse. She is really an expert. Plus, she knows about all the other departments, like the recorders and the auditors. And she's just got a really great customer service type attitude. But anyway, what they do now is they log in to a big database to make these land transactions, and it's free to the public. So I call it What the Heck GIS, because I never could remember what it stood for. But this particular company, if you go to and there's surely other companies too, but if you go to this particular company, it tells the counties that they handle. So if you go to the Putnam
It
County,
looks like your screen is blank.
Uh-oh, you didn't get that, huh?
No.
Now let's see, how do I share that? I went to the link and took me there, but apparently that didn't do it. Any suggestions, Miss Tech person? Let's see.
Look at the viewing options and see.
Okay, view, resume share. I got that. Well, why does it say resume? That went back there. A new share. Nope. Advanced sharing. Let's see. I'm not sure if that's it. I'll try that. It says I'm screen sharing. Let me go back here a little bit. So you cannot see the websites I'm going to?
No, I don't see the websites at all, so we might just have to go with talking about some of the presentations.
All right, well, I'll talk about them.
Okay.
I do have a list of all the links. And if I knew how to use this Zoom thing better, I probably could learn how to share it. But let me go back a little bit to all right. So the first website is What the Heck GIS. I have no idea what it stands for, but it's what the Platte people put the records in. And when you go to that, you can use it in a variety of ways. If you wanted to know who your new neighbor was, you could look yourself up if you own property, find your property, and then look around to see who owns that property now. If you're looking for like a cemetery, and you know about where it is, you can look around on it. So that's what's going on currently. Those are like, that's up to date in a regular basis. The GLOW records, which are part of the Bureau of Land Management, these are records that you can look up by name, people who were the first patent owners of land. And I wish I could show that to you because there's so many parts of it. But basically, on those records, if you don't know a name, but you or a time frame or whatever, you can look it up. You can look up by like the last name. You can also just look up like, you know, all of them in a certain county. So if you're, and then kind of scroll through it, because sometimes, you know, names aren't spelled like you think they should be. The other thing that GLOW records
Diane,
have,
try minimizing your slideshow on that screen. Michael online said that might work.
minimize. Okay. Well, let's see. Hide video panel. All right, let me try this. If I go here, can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So if I go down to some of where my things were. Can you see What the Heck GIS's website?
No. Now I just see you.
Well, I guess we should have worked with this a little more the other day when we practiced.
It was working before.
We were just trying to get logged in.
Diana, you might try share screen at the bottom.
Yeah, try that again. All right, share screen at the bottom. All right, here we go. Now I bet you can see it.
Now we can see the website.
All right,
Sure can.
great. All right, so I'm going to go back to the one that the Platte people look at. So if you go down to, if you find your county that you're looking for, it's not just to be nosy about your neighbors or how much they pay on their taxes. There's a lot of great things about, like, you can just kind of zoom in on this map and find, you know, where the cemetery is, but you need to get into that cemetery. And it's a pioneer. We have over 200 cemeteries that are in our county, and many of them are, on the back 40 acres of somebody's property, typically these patent owners. So you can zoom in and go looking for your cemetery, find your cemetery, and then see who the owners are around it and the obvious way to get back to it. If you don't know who that person is. You can also search for things. So I'm going to look here. I just put the library in. I had it a minute ago, so let's see if that still works. Sometimes it takes a bit to scroll through and find it. But if you can see that now on that screen, outlined in yellow is the Putnam County Library. And you can, make it bigger, or you can, go back a little bit. And it's really close. Over here is the courthouse. So we're not very far up, we're not too far out of the center of town. So that's mainly how I use it in genealogical research, is if I need to go to a cemetery. Let me go back to my PowerPoint and get to Glow Records. So Glow Records, can you see it now, my Safari screen? Or do you see the PowerPoint?
It looks like we're still on what the heck GIS.
All right, so let me go to, yeah, we are. Let me go to Glow Records. I call them glorious records because they are free. We love free things. They're not really free because we have paid for them via our taxes, but at least it's not a subscription service. So if we go to Bureau of Land Management and we want to search a document. So do you see that screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you can do it a variety of ways. If I want to look in Indiana and I want to look for somebody that I think landed here in Putnam County, then I would put their name in it. So my maiden name is Denny. So I look for all the Dennys that were early patent owners in our county. And I see several of them, but it's not the ones I think they should be. It's not my earliest fellow. So if I wanted to look by his name, I'm just going to put any county, and then I can put his first name and be more specific about it. And I already know where he's from, but if I didn't know where he's from, this is a great way. There's like 4 Robert Dennys, and I do happen to know that he's in Posey County. And I'm going to try to open up. This is a card, kind of like a card file, and it tells where they got it out of Jeffersonville, when they got it, and which land act it was through. But if you want to actually look at the patent image, sometimes it opens up and sometimes it doesn't, or it takes a long time. And I have found, let me find another one here that I've already go back to that one. See if I've got this one open. Okay, so here's Robert Denny, and many times it'll just say Robert Denny. This is in Washington County, Salem, and many times it'll say, Robert Denny of Washington County, Indiana, got this land patent. However, if you're lucky, and this one is a good example of that, it says, Robert Denny of Mercer County, Kentucky, got this land patent in Washington County. So here's an example of how a land record can get you back to where they came from. And if you have pioneer families in Indiana that came here in the 1830s and 40s, and we didn't have great, records, birth and death records they didn't have them. And then unless you were in a real established church, a fancy church, and many of them weren't, they were like meeting in someone's living room, then this is a great example of how you can get back to like, where did they come from? Because they don't always say. And they didn't have great obituaries for these early settlers. So there's an example of one. I've got another one here that, here's a fella, here's an example of one that Ebenezer Dixon, who's one of my forebears. This is a land patent in Putnam County, and it says he's from Putnam County. It's like, well, that doesn't help me get back further. But there's another one, because many times they'll get more than one. And I don't know if you can see this one or not, because it's a little bit smaller, but here it says Ebenezer Dixon, and they spell it on these patents. One time it's Dixon, and one time it's Dixson. So when you do the searching, you can, if you know his first name is Ebenezer, but you don't know how to spell the last name, and they spelled the first name right, then you can search by that. But this tells me that Ebenezer Dixon came from Montgomery County, Kentucky. So again, these are great records. And another part about it, they give a lot of on the reference center, which I didn't really look at when I first started using it. Like anything, you just kind of like dig in and use it for your purposes, which is genealogical research. But it'll tell you about it has every bit of information that you could ask for. There's another thing that I didn't discover till later, was down here on the front page. It says, I'm looking for records, any land office, any authority. Well, I didn't know what that meant, but as you can see, there's all these authorities. So these are every time the government decided that we need to sell some land, or we need to award people with land patents because they were good little soldiers, then these are the rules or the laws that did that. So when you get down to script warrants, there's several. One of them, it actually says, it gives the dates. One of them actually says 1812, but don't let that make you think that's the only time people, like when the War of 1812, got property, because it wasn't. You can either, I don't know how to look through all of them at the same time if I'm wanting to be real particular. So I usually just look through each one. And I'll give you an example of a script warrant that I'm going to go for any state. I had in DAR, I always say, find a friend to join DAR with you, because it's a lot more fun, or find a friend to go researching with you. So my best friend, Maureen, who was from Indiana, and she lives in Florida. So when she comes up, we go on what I call G-lunking trips, which is like spelunking, only you're G-lunking for genealogy records in cemeteries and courthouses and the like. So she wanted to join DAR, and we had found a Patriot line, and I was kind of still a rookie at filling out applications, and I thought I had this application perfect because one of her family names, the great grandparents or great were already proven in DAR records. So I kind of like glossed over that and went to the next generation back. Well, we got an error letter, which means you did not prove that lineage, because even though their names were in it, they had been established a long time ago. And the new rules are you got to prove at least a date and a place for either when they were born or where they died. when they are their death or birth records. And of course, she would come up from Florida and we would go gelunking out to Wayne County, which is a pretty good trip from Putnam County. And we did it several times. And then I said, out of desperation, I said, well, let's just look up your guy, or I said it to myself, because I didn't always use this record like I use it now. But one of her guys was James Cooney. And you think that's a great name. There's not that, I mean, there are a lot of Cooneys, but not like Smith Jones or that sort of thing. So we got into the land records, and the very first one that came up said, had three names: George Champ, Nancy Cooney, and James Cooney. Well, Nancy and James were the people I was looking for. So when I opened up that particular record, that record was awarding them property like out in Iowa. Okay. But when I opened it up, I still thought, she said, I don't think that's my family, because by this time Nancy was a widow. And she said, she never lived in Iowa. And we were both, new at this. And I said, So then I looked at it a little closer, and Nancy Cooney, it says widow of James Cooney, and he was in the War of 1812. And it also had this third name, which it was an assignee. So George Champ, there's three names, and he's not a family member. He was an assignee. So I thought, well, maybe it was her family. Maybe it is Nancy Cooney of Wayne County and that part of our state, and that she sold it to somebody else. So I looked up George Champ in the census records to see if he was in Indiana at that time. And he was, and he happened to live in Wayne County. So then I felt really comfortable, said, these are your people. She did get this. And then she didn't know he was in 1812. So that even opened up another great surprise. And also he has a lot of great records that we could look at, from the war. So that's a couple of ways that you can use it. If you just wanted to look for any state, any county, and then, any state or any county, but look at like the script warrants, then I think that was an 1850. That was okay. Here's an 1850, and we want to see if there was anything given. And Indiana is up there, so they were still, giving some land in Indiana. So if you do the search of patents, you can look at it. I don't think actually Putnam County was in this mess, but it'll do that search. And I hope I didn't lose the script. Yeah, it says any authority. So you have to do the script warrant authority, but you can do that and see if you have a last name of somebody and you want to see whether they, got property via one of these script warrants. You just can go down through each one of them. Here's 1852. I'm going to leave off the state because I don't think our state was. So if we do the script warrant, it's kind of tedious here. And you put the name Cooney in, for example, it says no matching. So then I just would go down through each one of those script warrants. Let's say I knew he was an 1812 person, because that's what these were primarily for. So anyway, that's one of the ways. But what I really like the ability to actually print out, these records. It says you can order, you can order a record, a certified record, but we don't need certified records unless we just want to fill our walls up with pretty records. So when I would get to one of these and then you see that, and then you have that proof that that's where Robert Denny came from, it's a pretty good feeling. Now, let me go back to, I don't know where I'm at on this because I'm kind of getting out of order. So those are a couple of examples. What the heck GIS, the GLOW records, of course, deeds, township records that are, there's transaction records at the auditor's office. And then I found this one. Whoop. And there are historic Indiana maps in our county. In our library, we have an 1864 map, and we have an atlas that was in 1879. Pretty good maps, kind of representative of several decades. And if I wanted to look in here for Putnam County.
Your screen's not showing again.
Again, all right, hold on.
Okay. If you probably go down to the bottom to share screen.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Well, you don't see that.
Nope.
Okay. Well, that's not coming up to my share screen thing. Like, it even go up here. No. Oh. Share screen here. Okay, so
Okay,
this,
you're
can you
back
see
on.
Indiana memory?
Yep. Historic Indiana.
Historic maps.
Mhm.
Okay, so I did a little search for Putnam, and it comes up with some topographical, geological maps, and it comes up with the topography Greencastle Township map, which I think we might have a copy of that as well. So these are just, and these are online, so you can kind of see those. I've also gone to archive.org, I think it is, that has a lot of great maps. Let's see, they might have some better examples in Putnam. So we'll look at, let's look at Knox. It's an old county. So there's an example of a map for Knox County sometime back. There's IUPUI. Let me see if I can find this one. Yeah, that didn't do it either, did it? So you do not see the Indiana, you don't see that one, I guess. Do you see Indiana historic maps here?
Yeah. It's
Yep.
Indiana maps from University Library.
All right, I think that was one I was at a minute ago, so I'm not sure this is the right one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the Indiana State Library also has a map collection that's online. And you can go down by your various counties. So if you went down to Owen County, which is south of us, it's going to show a 1911 map. And you can make these bigger to be able to look at them a little easier. A plat map from Owen County. And I think it's, yeah, this is time period 1920s and 30s. And you can open it up and go through it. There's 16 pages. So those are a couple of places, and they may not be, you may not find exactly what you want there. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. It's not as maybe as good for genealogical research, unless sometimes people come to the library and they want to know who owned their property during a certain period of time. So these, unlike the patentees, which we have a couple of books in our library that clearly show who were the first people, this would show, at various stages. There's another place called, let me see if I can get here, David Rumsey. You may be familiar with this. He's got a great collection, and you can also, do a search for various things. I'm not going to take the time to do this because I don't really have a good example, and I'm just trying to share another resource. Of course, at local libraries, so every county library that you can imagine, or other private library or historical or genealogical society, you can always call them up or email them and ask them, what they have if they don't have their catalog online. There's also a place called Historic MapWorks, and that's also got like some really great antique looking maps. And then I think I've seen some really good presentations, Google or YouTube works on how to use Google Earth to go back in time. You can use it now to find cemeteries, etc., but also to go back and find like who owned property at past time in the past. All right. We have some records in our library that are Sanborn fire, like their insurance maps. And so we have some for our county, and other places might also. There's a website that has a collection of them. And let me see if you can see this. Do you see the Library of Congress page?
Yep.
Okay, so the collection is called Sanborn Maps, collection items about this collection. And so if you look at that, there's going to be, a bunch of maps. These are ones we have. They're really, really interesting because they're highly detailed. And when you open them up, they're pretty nice sized maps, like looking at a city in a, with high detail. So that's another kind. There's other things that aren't what you might consider maps per se, but I do want to not leave them out because they're just as important, I think, when you're looking for where people came from, where they ended up. I'll get back to that. Did that. So we have at our library a search all database, and it's not really a map per se, but let me see if I can go to our website. When you go to tcpl21.org, which is our modern name, and go down to the archives. Then you can do a search all database. You used to could like just specifically look into these things, but now we've got a new website or manager or whatever, and it doesn't work quite that way. So you might as well just look by a name, and you can look by a whole name, or you can look by just a surname. So if we look by a surname, it's going to say, hey, we have birth records, cemetery listings, marriage records, obituaries, and boat right folders, which was also a lady that was in DAR some time back who gave her records to us. So she might have a family file where she has searched manually at the courthouse and wrote down, like in a surname, if we were looking at Dixon, for example, she might look in there and she might have written down everything she could find, by just manually going through the deed books and guardian books, etc. So you can actually go in there, and there is one. And I say we, well, this is an ancestral chart. The boat right folders have actually been digitized. If I wanted to look at where all the Dixons were buried, this isn't a map, but over here it tells you, here they are. This is a particular cemetery they're in, and this is the township they're in. So if you know that your family, my Dixon people, are up around the northern part of the county, and I'm going to look at it for a couple of different ways because they spelled it a couple of different ways. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea. Now, I think this is better than looking at find a grave and kind of parceling around with it. But, some people might like that better. Another website that we have that Larry Tippin put together, who is our county historian, and also, if I can find it, he also cleans and fixes tombstones. And he has a thing called the Putnam, it's PutnamIndianaCemeteries.com. And if you go to his website, some of the cemeteries he has more detail on because he's actually been there and he walks the walk and talks the talk. And so on this website, you can look down through if you're looking for a particular cemetery, which I'm going to go down to Franklin. Let's see, I think it's in Franklin, to the Dixon Cemetery. And he's put things on there like, he's got the GPS coordinates, but you can look at some pictures that he's taken. It kind of gives you a general idea. I think this is one of the cemeteries we're going to work on this year. And you can also go here, and he gives, again, the longitude, latitude, the fact that it is off the road, you have to ask for permission. And he gives you exact directions. And then he gives kind of a synopsis of if he's worked on it or, what it looks like. So at the time that he wrote this, which has been a while, it was in, relatively good condition. But as we were talking the other day, it's like, well, I was out there in 2003. Well, that's 19 years ago. And a lot of things happen. A lot of stuff that grows and knocks things over, et cetera. So at any rate, using this and matching it with the glow records and the family map groups that are often in libraries, it's very helpful to see if they live together and they died together, they're probably family. So the other good thing that he has on this website, and I used to have it on our website, but we kind of lost it, was maps. And we have a pretty good map. I think I bought it for $1, and it's a color map, a big color map from the plat office. But if you go to this map, for example, it tells you how the townships are divided. And then if you go to Franklin Township, which is the one I want to go to, this is my favorite map in well, these are just the townships, but this colored map is great because up here, this like, oh, here's the Fall Family Cemetery, their Doherty Young Cemetery, and there's a Dixon Cemetery. There's a whole bunch of cemeteries that are just family cemeteries, and there's may or may not be very many people there. But sometimes people come into the library and they're looking for, where their person is buried. And I say, when we don't have it on our website, we don't have their name in a cemetery, because whenever anybody walked those cemeteries, they might have been in the 50s, they might have been in the 1980s, they could have been 100, 150 years later, and it was probably on some back, section of a farm. So at least you can kind of say, well, you're using the either deed records or the glow records. You can kind of get an idea what township they were in, and then you can go, well, they lived right there, so they're probably going to be buried here. This Dixon Cemetery, which is where this Ebenezer Dixon is buried, and he does have a marker, so that's great. But that is on the property as one of the pieces of property that he lived he lived in it at the time. So there's another thing. Whoops, that's not it. At our local level, we have, you always want to look, whether any kind of research, whether it's land or anything, take your county that you're going to, and I have a little chart that I fill out, like, okay, is there a library there? Yes. What's contact? Is there a genealogical or historical society? Well, we don't really have that per se in our county, unless you consider the Time Travelers a genealogical society, but there's no dues, or we're not associated with Indiana Genealogical Society per se. Is there a museum? We have one. We also have a college. In our college, DePaul has some great things. They have a lot of stuff online that you can look at, a lot of pictures, etc. But they also are they're a repository for Methodist church records, and they have some deep and old records there. So that's a great local. Not every county, of course, has a college. And then the one at the bottom is the one I mentioned, the Putnam, Indiana Cemeteries. Another place which, let's see if I can get there. Okay, can you see Family Search?
Yes.
Okay, so Family Search, when we first started working on our trees, I'm talking about the other time travelers and myself, we discovered that, well, Family Search has a massive, like a wiki tree. They've got one great big tree, but it's like Find a Grave. Anybody can change on it what you want to change. And we all said, ooh, we don't want that. We want our own tree on ancestry.com that that nobody can change it but us, because we know our family. We used to say that. And really, I used it a lot for searching for marriage records, because a lot of those, they took the main ones, the vital records, and they indexed those pretty quickly. But for a long time, I didn't realize that they had hidden records. They're not really hidden. It's just, if you don't know how to use, the website, or you don't know how to do research in general, then instead of just going to search and then putting some names in and some places in and hoping for the best, you're only going to get like a teeny tiny amount of records, because they're not all indexed. But you can go to the catalog, and then it says you can search by a lot of things, but the primary one we look for is by place. So look for place, and I usually I usually put the state first and then the county because there's a lot of Putnam counties. But if you go there, then you can see all the things that, that Family Search has. Well, first of all, they microfilmed them or took pictures and microfilmed, and then now they've converted it all to digital. So there's a lot of things here. Like, for example, they have maps. It tells you things like that. Sometimes you can see the map, and sometimes it's just saying, hey, it's in our library, offsite storage. But the other part of using land records to do some proving is probate records and then deeds. And on to go to that where it says land and property, you look at these things, and for example, down here, the Putnam County, Indiana land patents, it says author Laura Lee Ball, who's in our DAR, and she and some other ladies put together, or they built these maps as to where these patent owners lived. Did they live next door to each other? Did they live in this, they worked it all out by to show where they actually live, real maps, not just, it's in one of those, that language was like section 4 of range west of this and that you have to kind of really pay attention to know where you're at. But the other one, so sometimes you have books like that, but when you see that the author is a Putnam County or an Indiana or any county, whatever, a county recorder or somebody that works for the government like that at the courthouse, then these are going to be the actual deed records. Now, on Family Search, I'm at home, and we do not have access from home. So there's over on the right-hand side, it'll say, well, here's all the records we have. And over on the right-hand side, so yeah, we've got a picture of them because there's a camera, but then they have a lock on it, which is irritating to me, but because not all states are like that. For example, I was looking in, I think it's Virginia. I think it was Virginia. It's either Franklin County, Virginia, or Pennsylvania the other day. So if I go there, I'm going to see what they have. And when I go to the land and property records, their deed records are also locked. So you have to either, well, what you have to do is go to either Family Search History Center, which are typically in bigger cities. And some of my good researchers use those places, but they're manned by man and woman, I should say, because they're volunteers. And they might only be open a couple nights a week or certain hours. And they also were at least an hour and a half away from us. So the other way to get the access to these deed records and a variety of other things is to get your local library to become a Family Search affiliated library. And in fact, I had ours changed to that a few years ago. And actually, the reason I did it was I was kind of mad at the time because we had, in our county, we had, let me see if I can get that. We had some previous genealogical people who made sure that when the Family Search people came, that they took pictures of our birth and death records books. And now we can't see those books. So, and not every county has this, but under vital records, they got marriage, of course, etc. But they also have births and deaths. And again, they're under lock and key. But when I go to the library and I want to look for a birth or death record, and I don't have time to go down to the Board of Health or the inclination to, and maybe they're not even open. And these are, we're very fortunate that Ancestry.com has many of our birth and death certificates. but they came from the state archives, so they didn't start in 1882. They, I think 1899 and maybe even 1906 for birth or something like that. But if you wanted to look at the old ones, then, you know, they're here. So I'll hope to find you. Let me look at the catalog one more time. I'm going to show you what a deed book looks like if I can find a state that's open. I was thinking I was looking at one from. All right, land and property. Deeds. Looks like I've been here. Okay, these again are under lock and key. I think that somebody told me that, I didn't know if they were talking about all states, but they were particularly talking about ours, that the recorders did not want these to be opened up because I think they made a lot of money on like the people that do geological research, like when someone's getting ready to build something. So that, anyway, so that is one thing. That's another way you can look at like who bought the land when they sold it. And again, these are land records, not maps, but they're very, very important in finding out like who owned the land next, or who the children are that inherited it. Here's an example. I don't know, maybe over time here, since I had such a crummy start.
Yeah, we've got like maybe a couple more minutes, and we could always answer questions later through.
Okay, I have I think I'm almost done with my resources. Let's see, I talked about that. We go geolunking everywhere, and there's all kinds of, you know, resources or things to look at. But and I have a long example, which I will skip, but I do want to share with you a resource that it's called historygeo.com. And I'm really frugal on what I spend money for. And I do and have for a long time belonged to ancestry.com. But I don't take newspapers.com. I'd like to, but I just don't know if I need it that much because I have other newspaper resources. But I did join this one because they're the ones that put the family map groups together of each county. And we have a map book for Putnam County, and Owen County has one, and Park County. A lot of counties that I'm interested in have these, and they are the ones that have the people like who live next door to your, you know, your family. And sometimes those open up interesting things. So you can go into History Geo, and they have three things. They have a place finder, and they have antique maps, which is another thing. You know, we talked about, there's several places that have antique maps. But the first landowners project is taking these patent records that you see listed on the GLOW records from the federal government. And in our library, we had another book that was done, like I mentioned earlier, by some DAR ladies. But this one is a little bit better because it can show you like where they lived and who lived next door to them. And so I did a little research on Dixon because I had a situation where I could not figure out who the mom and dad were. And I found like this Nancy Jones and her kids. So she was a widow, but I didn't know who she was married to. So I couldn't find out who my great grandmother's dad was. And so through traditional marriage records, I said, well, here's one Nancy Dixon that married a Jones. And so I looked, you know, for Dixons, and I looked for Jones on this sort of thing, on this, not on the website, but through the books. And lo and behold, I found this Ebenezer Dixon, which I didn't know his name before. And he had land adjacent to some Joneses, of course, but it just so happened that they were in that northern Franklin Township part of our county. And by using these maps and these clues and, some other things, I thought, well, maybe this is them. And then, of course, I could do the traditional route by going to the courthouse and looking and finding things like, like the Jones guy died young. So there were guardian bond records. And I was very fortunate that even though she wasn't 21 yet, but she was married, and then I could figure out who the daddy was. The other thing about this particular website is that you can, when you subscribe to it, and it's not real expensive, but when you subscribe to it and you find these people, you can mark them as, my people. So here's some of my people. If I'm, I don't get into this all the time, but I can mark them and then I can find them again. So like the Dixon guy, or the Jones guy. If I go to the Jones guy and I hit his name, it's going to come up with, well, here's James Jones, who was listed on that marriage record to a Nancy Dixon. And looky here, here's an Ebenezer Dixon that lives right next door. And of course, back in the day, and even today, I suppose, but especially back in the day, we didn't travel like we do now. Where are you going to meet people to marry? Churches, neighbors, etc. So this is a great resource. And I'm not plugging it, but I do think it's one that I feel comfortable supporting. Anyway, I think I've probably gone over my time. And like I said, I was really rough on figuring out how to share this, and I apologize for that. But
well, you had a lot of great information here. And I think even the questions we had on there that you pretty much answered, but if anyone wants to post a question, they can, but we really appreciate this. I mean, like I said, you had a lot of information in here.
That was wonderful.
Well,
It
I'm
was
glad
great
that
information.
like I said, a lot of this stuff we kind of learned together, or as we had issues or problems, or like in DAR, you're trying to prove one line back to another. Sometimes you use up your normal routes, then you have to be a little bit creative to figure out some of these other things. But I love maps. I have a whole wall of maps upstairs in my main office. There's a catwalk that has a big long wall, and so we put a big piece of metal up there, and I have, when I collect maps, like primarily, the counties I research, I've got them all up there because it's kind of, you put them in a drawer, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Now, is there an email address or somewhere that people can reach you?
Sure.
Want to share?
Yeah, I actually have my regular one, which gets so clogged up. Like tonight, I was having trouble finding the email with my link, even though I had it, and then I had to find it again. So I work at the library part-time, Mondays and Wednesdays. And if you have a research question specifically for Putnam County, that would be great just to send it there. It's D Brumfield at pcpl21.org. And I also help people. If somebody else calls and have any kind of Putnam County, way back or whenever, you can do that. And I've also helped other people as well.
We'll post those email address, your email address in there.
Yeah.
There is one question.
My personal email is just my name at gmail.com.
Okay, I'll share both of those. We did have one question here that I guess Laura, I'm sorry, I'm horrible at pronouncing names. She wants to know, where can I find an original land record of my ancestors? I've tried and failed. It wasn't called the Gore, at least as far as I can tell. I know he went and paid for land with pennies on the dollar in silver and gold in the Cincinnati land office in 1810, 1811, the area of Jefferson County, almost the southern border of Jennings County.
Okay, I'm not clear whether she knows, she's thinking this is where he bought it, or, because there's a variety of places. Obviously, you can, if you know where it, if it's the first patent owner, then you go to Glow Records. But if they bought land subsequent to that, it's not going to show up that way. If you're in an area like a family search affiliated area, or the records are open, you might be able to look through deeds and find it, but they're not indexed, so it's kind of difficult. So in the particular county, in, I guess, all the states, I mean, it's in the recorder's office in our state where we keep those, as well as there's another section in our auditors. I don't go there as often, but they have them kind of formulated or kind of by township, which narrows it down a little bit. But I think she might need a broader search.
Okay. And you can always email her, Laura. Also,
Yeah, if you have something more.
He says it is his first, he is the first patent owner.
Okay, well then,
Cincinnati Land Office.
then I would throw his name into that Glow Records because it's free. And then I would vary the spelling a little bit. And if it's a real common name, and you think it's in this county, you can do it that way. But that would, if it's a patent owner, then yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, she said, okay, thanks. All right, and so I think we're going to wrap up this one. Again, thank you so much, Diana. And we want to thank everyone who came to watch us live. And if you guys watch it in the replay, just shoot us a comment saying you watched in the replay. And we are working.
I hope they don't watch it too much in the replay, because I was pretty lousy on managing my back and forth. I thought for sure if I opened that website.
No, you had tons of amazing information. So they might watch it over and over again.
We also, if you're local, I mean, you please come join us or email me to get on the mailing list. We meet the first Wednesday night of the month. We meet at the library. That's one of the nights I work Wednesday nights, so it's the first Wednesday night of the month. And we just have a great group of people, and they all know how to do this. They are excellent researchers, and mostly it's because they've been persistent and, meeting other people, and somebody knows one thing and I know another thing. And then we just built a pretty good, bundle of things, of resources to look for and ideas.
Right. All right. Well, thank you guys, everybody. And we will see you next month.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.